world is welcome in America. Those who want to come to create trouble, like in every country in the world, well, they are not welcome.
But the State Department website reports some consulates have average wait times as long as 16 months. Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying last month he's considering making some consulates work overtime and even employing AI to help speed things up. And as countries start to qualify for the World Cup, another worry. President Trump's new travel ban, completely cutting off visitors from 12 nations, including Iran, which has already secured a spot in the tournament.
We want them to come, we want them to celebrate, we want them to watch the game, but when the time is up, they'll have to go home. Otherwise, they'll have to talk to Secretary No.
President Trump's new round of sweeping tariffs, which are now in effect. Levies apply to dozens of countries across the globe. The European Union and countries like the United Kingdom, they have already worked out trade deals with the U.S., while negotiations are still underway with China and Mexico. Tariffs are now at the highest level since the Great Depression. That includes the U.S. hitting Brazil and India with the highest rate of 50%.
And Monica, the president's declaring it a massive victory. But this isn't even the end of his tariff moves, right?
For millions of travelers coming into the U.S. will now be subject to a new $250 visa integrity fee.
By the entry of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted, as well as those who come here as temporary visitors and overstay their visas, we don't want them.
Our figures are record breaking, and we have seen how America has embraced all different communities from the entire world.
Harder to gauge the impact of U.S. immigration policies, including new international travel restrictions and an ongoing crackdown on illegal immigration that has impacted even some non-citizens in the country legally.
There's a huge Latino population here in the United States that wants to be able to go to those types of matches. But with fear of ICE and other ramifications from a social, economic, and social political standpoint, that ended up being the overriding factor for many to stay away.
And when you want to kick out someone, like this. That's true, right?
Just when everyone thought the 2026 World Cup drama was over, it's not. The U.S. has layered on new tariffs, tightened travel restrictions, and introduced a $250 visa integrity fee, on top of visa backlogs that in some places stretch beyond 300 days. For many international fans, that means expensive hurdles, missed deadlines, and the risk of being shut out before they even board a plane. Canada and Mexico, meanwhile, are watching closely. In this breakdown, we'll look at how tariffs hit World Cup planning, how visa chaos locks fans out, and how that opens the door for America's neighbors. The tariff fight has now reached deep into the playbook for building and running a World Cup. The White House's expanded reciprocal tariff program, launched as part of broader trade disputes, has sharply lifted effective tariff levels, pulling in everything from structural steel and aluminum to finished goods that host cities depend on. For the first time, these levies aren't stopping at raw materials. They're sweeping up imports tied directly to stadium construction, sports gear manufacturing, and even the merchandise supply chain. The same ball a star player kicks, the fabric for official jerseys, the LED panels for giant screens, all of them now land on U.S. soil with a higher price tag. These hikes have jammed stadium logistics. Hosting committees had already locked in orders for specialized turf systems from Europe, scoreboard components from Asia, and precision-fabricated seating sourced abroad. Now those shipments run straight into cross-border cost surges and customs delays. Stadium roofs needing Canadian steel, media zones slated for tech shipped in from overseas, and housing for traveling staff relying on imported fixtures all face the same problem. Budgets drawn up months ago are suddenly under pressure, with little room to swap suppliers without cutting quality. Fans may think this is just a headache for contractors, but the extra costs spill into the stands. Hotels in host cities are paying more for imported appliances and linens. Restaurants and concessions see key ingredients hit with tariffs that used to move freely. Those bumps show up in higher ticket packages, pricier matchday meals, and a steeper bill at the souvenir shop. If you bought an official scarf in 2018, expect to pay significantly more for the same item in 2026, before factoring in airfare or lodging. Even analysts say the average effective tariff rate hitting these goods is at historic highs, adding meaningful cost pressure across the board. Local organizing committees are responding by trimming where they can, shelving some community events, scaling back volunteer perks, and quietly asking sponsors to absorb bigger infrastructure expenses. Sponsors, for their part, have started revisiting their contracts, looking at whether promised on-site promotions and installations are still worth the new prices. The dynamic is eerily familiar to what Brazil saw before the 2014 tournament, when inflation and cost overruns forced visible compromises. Canada and Mexico face different realities. They're not contending with the same combination of U.S. tariffs, tightened travel rules, and new visa fees. Canada is moving ahead with its own upgrades under more stable supply arrangements, and Mexico's existing facilities keep costs predictable. For FIFA, that gap in operating risk is hard to ignore. And while the cost side is already squeezing organizers, the next challenge reaches beyond construction budgets. It's about whether fans can even make it through the gates. For many international supporters, the real hurdle isn't ticket availability. It's getting the paperwork that lets them in the country at all. The new visa integrity fee, introduced under the One Big Beautiful Bill, could take effect as early as October 1st, 2025, landing just months before kickoff. At $250 per applicant, it's on top of the standard visa application costs and applies to most non-immigrant visitors from countries without a U.S. visa waiver. The fee is non-waivable, and while the law technically allows a refund for those who fully comply with visa terms and depart on time, immigration experts warn the process is so complex and uncertain that most visitors should consider it non-refundable. For fans in football-mad nations without visa-free entry, places like Nigeria, Colombia, and Iran, that's a significant budget hit. And the fee comes on top of a visa application process that's already bogged down. U.S. State Department data shows some consulates reporting wait times at or above 300 days for a tourist visa interview. That means even if a supporter bought tickets the moment they went on sale, in many parts of the world there's no realistic chance they would get an appointment before the tournament ends. Layered on top of that is a standing proclamation restricting or blocking entry for nationals of 12 countries, alongside partial restrictions on several others. Athletes, coaches, and essential team staff may qualify for exemptions, but ordinary fans in those categories face effectively no practical access. For those affected, it's not a matter of paying more or planning earlier. It's a hard stop. Fan associations are already warning members not to commit to U.S. travel plans unless their visa status is rock solid. In some cases, groups have suspended their official trips entirely, citing the combination of high fees, long waits, and outright ineligibility. FIFA, which requires hosts to guarantee that all ticket holders can enter the country, has been issuing public reminders about the principle of universal access. Rights organizations like Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International have gone further, arguing this isn't just a logistical mess, it's a values test. Restrictions, they say, risk turning a unifying global event into one with visible exclusions and send a message about who is and isn't welcome. By contrast, Canada processes most visas within weeks, and many visitors to Mexico don't need one at all for short stays. Stadium seats in Vancouver or Monterrey are far easier to fill when fans know they can actually get to them. That's why fans and sponsors are already looking north and south. Canada and Mexico are now positioning themselves as the most reliable co-hosts in 2026. In Canada's case, the opportunity is measurable. The FIFA Economic Impact Assessment projects $3.8 billion in total economic output from the 13 matches already scheduled, including roughly $2 billion added to GDP, $700 million in government revenue, and about 24,100 jobs created or sustained nationwide between June 2023 and August 2026. That's before factoring in any additional matches that could be reassigned. Vancouver's BC Place, with its retractable roof and 54,000 seat capacity, is ready now. In Toronto, BMO Field's expansion to just over 45,000 seats is on track to meet FIFA minimums months ahead of schedule, with training facilities and fan zones already in the final planning stage. Mexico offers its own strong hand. The Estadio Azteca in Mexico City has the singular distinction of being the only stadium to host matches in both the 1970 and 1986 Men's World Cups, and it's slated to open the 2026 tournament. Other Mexican venues, including Estadio BBVA in Monterrey and Estadio Akron in Guadalajara, meet FIFA standards and already have experience staging high-profile international events. These aren't speculative builds or uncertain projects. They are operational arenas with proven ability to host at scale. Combined with simpler visa processes and airline route expansions aimed at international fans, Mexico can credibly argue it has the infrastructure and access advantages to take on more games if asked. Sponsors are already making moves that reflect this calculation. Emirates Airlines has redirected $15 million in advertising from U.S. stadiums to Canadian venues, according to commercial filings. Visa is restructuring its activation zones to concentrate promotional efforts in Toronto rather than risk half-empty stands in uncertain U.S. markets. These are not symbolic shifts, they are budget reallocations driven by projections of where large, diverse crowds will actually be. For FIFA, the potential to move matches north or south isn't unprecedented. In 1986, Colombia lost hosting rights with just 2 years' notice after falling short on requirements, and Mexico stepped in to stage one of the most memorable tournaments in history. The criteria driving that decision then, reliable venues, secure logistics, and the ability to deliver on short notice, are the same ones now being weighed behind closed doors. Public sentiment only adds to the pressure. Viral videos from locked-out supporter groups, trending relocation hashtags, and chants at unrelated matches have shifted the idea of moving games from a hypothetical to a widely discussed contingency. Canada and Mexico are not improvising. They are already in ready mode, with stadiums completed or on schedule, visa pathways clear, and governments publicly signaling a willingness to expand their role. The question now is how FIFA will respond if the primary host can't meet its access commitments. FIFA's next move may be its most consequential in years. At stake is not a stadium's readiness or player safety, but whether the governing body's own access guarantees can be upheld. Under its host agreements, FIFA requires that every ticket holder be able to enter the host country, and those same agreements give it the right to reallocate matches if that standard cannot be met. The clause allows for changes with as little as 90 days' notice, a mechanism that internal planning models suggest could become critical by March 2026 if the United States has not resolved its visa and travel restrictions. There's precedent for decisive action. In 1986, Colombia was unable to meet FIFA's hosting requirements, prompting the entire tournament to be reassigned to Mexico with just 2 years to prepare. While the current situation is different, the principle is the same. When a host falters on core obligations, FIFA's bylaws enable it to act quickly to protect the tournament's integrity. Recent media reporting and leaked planning memos indicate that contingency scenarios have been modeled for shifting a significant number of group stage fixtures to Canada if U.S. access barriers remain, not as a rumor, but as part of risk management. The financial dimension is just as pressing. Billions in sponsorship deals, broadcast rights, and tourism revenue hinge on full stadiums and global attendance. Empty rows caused by denied visas or travel bans would not only undercut the spectacle, but could trigger penalty clauses in sponsorship contracts. That risk is why brands are already adjusting. Emirates has redirected $15 million in advertising from U.S. venues to Canadian ones, and Visa is restructuring activation zones to focus on markets with fewer access concerns. These decisions are informed by hard numbers, not sentiment. FIFA is also monitoring the political climate and public opinion. Viral campaigns from excluded fans, diplomatic complaints from affected countries, and rights groups warning of human rights breaches add pressure to enforce the access guarantee. That pulls the decision into 3 clear arenas: contractual enforcement, commercial viability, and public legitimacy. All 3 forces will collide in the coming months, and the outcome will shape not just where the matches are played, but the credibility of the event itself on the world stage. The direction FIFA takes next will speak volumes about how it reconciles its commitments with the realities on the ground. Off-field politics are now shaping the 2026 World Cup's future. Tariffs and disrupted supply chains are inflating the cost of stadium builds and fan infrastructure. Lengthy visa waits, some stretching past 300 days, plus the $250 integrity fee, are shutting out entire groups of supporters. Sponsors and FIFA planners are already modeling contingency shifts to Canada and Mexico, where venues are ready and access is clear. Given Canada's readiness and the access problems in the U.S., should FIFA reassign marquee matches to protect the tournament's integrity? Tell us why in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more.